Okay, let's begin this particular webinar. Now, firstly, as I begin this webinar, one thing that I want to say is that, over this year, I know it's been an incredibly busy year for a lot of people. What we've seen this year, as we've seen with many years, but probably more so this year than any other year, is we've seen, political turmoil. We've seen, spiritual warfare that has happened right across the globe. And we're, as a result, something that I'm seeing personally from many people who are coming into our coaching are expressing that they've had incredible challenges this year, financially, mentally, physically, spiritually. And one particular theme that I've seen over this particular year is a loss of hope for many people. And something that I really felt was very close to my heart was there have been tools and techniques and insights and processes that I've been using for many years that I really wanted to share today to re-enliven hope and give people a real important sense of what they can actually do to begin to make 2026 an easier year. And so people are just jumping on now. So I just want to get a sense that if you're jumping on now, I just want to get a sense, A, can you hear me clearly? Can you see the vision clearly? And where are you from? So if you wouldn't mind just popping in the chat where you're from so I can get a sense of who's tuning in at the moment. So awesome. So we've got Melbourne tuning in so far, and I want today to be valuable in moving forward. So in a moment, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I felt it was probably important to stand up. I know it's been a big year for a lot of you. And the thing that I want to say is a big thank you to you. I know it's a very busy year for most people. And I wanted to make sure that today was incredibly valuable to you. So, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and let's do that now. So I have all of this content on PowerPoint. I'm really happy to share my slides too. So what we'll begin to do is we'll start. The theme for today is how can NLP elevate 2026? So some of you are familiar with NLP, some of you perhaps are not familiar with NLP. But for those of you that are, I want you to give you some insights as to how you can actually begin to use NLP to really help you move forward because you've been trained with the tools, so you've got the tools. For others who are unfamiliar with what NLP is, I want to give you a really good basic understanding, and then I want to drill down and give you even further understanding. NLP is something that I learned many years ago back in 2004, and it completely created an incredible turnaround in my life. And it continues to give me a lot of tools and a lot of insights and understanding. So here are what we're going to cover today. Today, who really benefits from NLP, and is it something that you could actually benefit from? And how do you actually benefit from NLP? So I'm going to share a few insights that I haven't shared before. And I'm going to talk about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset and how does learning NLP help you to unlock your thinking and open up your mindset to turn from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. And the aim is a big one. I'm aiming to summarize essentially 105 hours of training into 1 hour. That's my goal. Let's see how I go. I want to make this simple, understandable, and actionable. So at the end, I'm also going to provide a link to enroll in our NLP course. So I'm saying that up front. But what I'm actually going to do is today we're going to discount it like we've never discounted this course before. And the reason we're doing that is we want to really, really help and we want to make it easy for people to enroll in this course because this particular course has totally changed people's lives. It's literally turned people's lives around. Now, what I'd also like to do, I've been doing an enormous amount of coaching over this year, and there have been a few of my very wonderful clients that I coach personally who have needed some insights and some shifts in their paradigm. And there are two audios that I'm working on at the moment, which I've just recorded for two of my lovely clients. And I'm going to turn them into a product to really help people to progress and move forward. And I'm going to give those audios to you at the very end of this. Now, when I say at the end of this, everyone who stays to the end, I'm going to give you the recording. It's going to take me probably another 2 or 3 days to edit them and put music under them, put binaural beats and put subliminals in there as well to really make sure that these products really help to shift your thinking and improve your thinking. So stay tuned. I will make sure that I make this highly valuable. And at the very end, I'll make sure that I know who's still on. And then I will personally get those audio recordings out to you, plus the slides. So don't feel, if you want, you can copy the slides, you can take notes as you go, knowing full well that I'm going to give you the slides as well. So the big question that we're really proposing at the very beginning of this is who really benefits from actually learning NLP? And there are three very distinct areas here that many people come into the program for. Some want to grow their business. And in other words, what they typically find is they find they want to grow their business or they want to grow their income or they want to start, scaling their business so that they can, sell the business and turn it into a retirement fund. There are many, many other reasons that people want to grow their business, but a lot of people recognize that mindset is a real key to actually helping them to grow their business. So that's one particular group. There's another group that actually want to grow their career. Now, some of those people actually want to be coaches. They come into the program because the program has an accreditation attached to it, which accredits them as an NLP practitioner, an Ericksonian hypnotherapist, and a life coach. So some people come because they want the skills of coaching, because that's what they're considering using as a business to be able to go out and help people. And others just simply want to grow their career because they've recognized that they're stuck. They're hitting a glass ceiling, they're not being promoted, or they're not being given opportunities. So the course looks at what is the mindset that stilts and stems and stymies and stops people from literally growing. Now, the other piece is because some people just simply want to grow themselves, because they've got anxiety, depression, they've got patterns that aren't really helping them. They want to maybe grow their income in their career, or they've got health concerns. They just know that they have been capped. So the real key here to understand is if you're not interested in growth, this course is not for you, because it is really all about a growth mindset and building that growth mindset. So let's go into a little bit more detail. So we've got business owners, we've got parents and couples. Little disclaimer here. Over the years, we've had a lot of parents who have come into the course and gained a huge amount of benefit from the course personally or professionally. And the first thing they think about is, wow, I could give my child such an advantage by coming into the course. I remember one particular lovely gentleman, which I'll mention him further into the training, brought his entire family into the program because he and his wife got so much benefit from it. And that was fantastic because we don't accept anyone that is 16 or under. So we really, if you're thinking of bringing your kids into a course like this, really, sure, we have had someone who was 16. In fact, it was my own daughter, was one of those who came into the course and she got an enormous amount of benefit and value. But typically, 16 is kind of the limit. You don't want to go too much younger than that because even though the content is simple to follow and understand, they don't have enough motive to really take in the learnings, not at that age. So parents and couples often come into the program, coaches, therapists, and healers. I think if you're a coach or a therapist and healer and you don't know NLP, you are at a huge disadvantage. So many healers and therapists and coaches come in and they learn NLP. I remember me as a coach, I learned coaching traditionally. Then I learned NLP, and my coaching was like it went on steroids. It completely was a game changer. Now, the other is you if you want to grow. And so that's to get a sense of who is the right person for this particular program. Now, we spoke about growth, and that's essentially what it is, but how do you actually benefit? So the ways that in which that I'd like to clarify this is it's systems. So a lot of NLP is about modeling and how do you create a great system to be able to get the result that you're really looking for. So much of the thinking and the structure is very systematic. It's taught in a way that anyone can follow the system and get a good result. So a lot of NLP is learning how do you break through anxiety, for example. So the first thing you've got to understand is what is the system that creates anxiety, and then what system can you overlay over the top of that system to break it so that people can break through and get beyond anxiety or depression or anything like that. So, equally, in the context of achieving, like if you want to grow your business or grow you, what is the system that you're currently using to get yourself stuck? And then what system could you overlay over the top of it to be able to propel you beyond your conditioning? And I'll talk about conditioning in a moment. So, systems, very much so. The other is strategies. Systems is the structure, strategies are the steps. So strategies are essentially, if you think about it, everything you do is a strategy. It's a series of steps in order to get a very specific outcome. It is, in a sense, it's quite mathematical. Like if you understand how you need to feel, how you need to think, how you need to speak, how you need to gesture in order to get your point across as a public speaker, you know that some people use strategies that are ineffective, and so they don't come across as strong or as confident as they could. So much of NLP is working out what are the inefficient strategies that people are using to not get the results they want, or to get the results that they don't want, I should say, and then work out what can you do to that strategy to help that person now be able to get that particular result. So essentially, if we look at NLP, how do you benefit? It's the systems, it's the strategies, and it's also about removing limits. Now, that's a big chunk of NLP because NLP is one of those courses that you just don't sit down and just write and take notes. It's a course that you want to actually really learn it and know it. And the only way to do that is, for example, when we're talking about ineffective strategies, in our NLP training, what we'll often do is we will talk about, what are the limits how are we limiting ourselves and what is that strategy in order to limit ourselves? So, in order to remove the limits, we don't just want to sit there and take notes. Oh, you do this and you do that, and that's how you break through limits. What you actually want to do is address your limits. So, the way in which we teach it is really, really important. And I'll talk about that in a bit greater detail. But as a bigger picture, what you've got to do is you've got to experience NLP in order to really know it. One of my early mentors, a gentleman by the name of Roger Hamilton, used to always repeat to me over and over again, to know and not to do is not yet to know, which is an old Chinese proverb. And it's so true. If you only know NLP, but you don't use NLP, then you truly don't know NLP. So much of NLP is really about totally knowing how to actually get the results by getting the results personally. So it's about removing limits as well as much as it is systems and strategies and language and all the stuff that you learn from NLP. These are the three core areas that help you to benefit. So if we put this in the context that many of you have heard before, a fixed mindset versus a another mindset, which is a growth mindset. When we're in a fixed mindset, we know this because we're locked, we're stuck, we're in a rut. I'll give you an example. I was working with a client last night, late last night, and I asked her to tell me what were the metaphors that she was using in her life that was causing her a lot of pain. And she said, it is like walking through mud. And I said, what kind of mud? And she said, it's kind of like that sticky clay mud. And this is how we often communicate to ourselves. We talk in metaphors. Now, was she literally in mud? No, she wasn't. But a metaphor is just as good. And so that's when we're in a fixed mindset, we're very stuck. So the thing to understand here is that a growth mindset, to recognize that, that's when we are not stopped or hindered by our challenges and we don't get upset or triggered by our challenges. Our challenges are simply a sign that it's time to springboard. It's time to get beyond the challenge and into an opportunity because every challenge has an opportunity. But if you can't see it, you're in a fixed mindset. So NLP, in essence, helps you to see the world in a different way. And I'm going to give you some examples soon. So, who is your trainer? I just want to introduce myself to those of you who I haven't met before. So, as a trainer, essentially, I want to share the real core of who I was before NLP. And in a summary, I just really struggled financially. I hit a ceiling. I could not get to six figures. I just couldn't get there. I didn't know how. I didn't have the self-esteem, and I would always accept a lower income. And so it really held me back professionally. A lot of people, by the way, might not believe this, but it's absolutely true. I remember when I first started working for News Limited and I was on the executive team, but we had our first Christmas function and I was on a table with the MD and the general manager and the finance manager and all the head honchos. And I was so intimidated that I wanted to get off that table and just go out and cry. And that's how I was socially for the first 40 years of my life. I was scared. I was scared of everything. And it was really only until I got down to $27. My wife shared with me that we were down to $27, that we were actually threatened with losing everything and being homeless. This was the trigger. This was the last point. And sometimes people have to get to that in order to do the work that they've been avoiding for most of their lives. There's a little saying, a spiritual saying that you often hear, and you've probably heard this before. The universe whispers in your ear, tickles you with a feather, and then whack, slams you with a train. If you do not hear the intuitive messages that are telling you it's time to change. So this was my be hit with the train. And so I suffered with anxiety big time. And the story I shared with you about sitting with the executives was really my anxiety at the worst level. By the way, no one could see it. No one could see my anxiety. Well, I don't think anyone could see. There may have been some very intuitive people who could see and feel, but I hit it. I mastered it, incredibly. And I used to fall apart in the evening where what I would do is go home and I would drink to get relief, drink alcohol, I'm talking about. And so I built up an alcohol dependency, which started when I was a young adult and I couldn't go to parties without it. Depression, I discovered as I went through my NLP training that my depression that I had for most of my life actually wasn't even mine. It was just modeling. I modeled my mother. And that's how I came to believe I was depressed, but I really wasn't. I was just modeling, building rapport with my mother. In 2004, I learned NLP. That was the big turnaround for me, and I wrote my first book. And going through NLP, everything disappeared. All my anxiety, all my depression, and my alcohol. I didn't need it. I can still have a drink, and I do every now and then, but I can actually stop at one glass. Easy. Alcohol is not a big thing for me. Over Christmas, I'll have a couple of beers. I might have a G&T or a wine or something like that, but I don't have a problem with it. And that's the most important piece. So a lot of things were really happening to me before I learned NLP. When I did, I've enjoyed 24 years as a coach and I've built my reputation as the go-to person for change. I get psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, people who often refer clients to me that they haven't been able to help. They kind of get to the block point. This is my real expertise. NLP gave me that. And it wasn't natural. It had to be learned. And I learned how to actually see what was really stopping a person. So, as a coach, I've been doing that for 24 years. It was a client many years ago who had multiple sclerosis that I did some work with him, and all his symptoms disappeared. He was the guy that called me the brain untrainer, and it stuck. I've now done 39,000 hours of transformational work experience, working one-on-one with people. And in 23, 24, I won the APAC International Award for Transformational Coaching. And NLP gave me so much value that I put my knowledge into various books. So overall, I've written 7 books. This last one is my last book. It's a 550-page A4 book. It's huge. And it's the book that people use to reference in the NLP practitioner course. So, what is NLP? Because this was certainly quite key in all of this, is we've got to know what is it really. So firstly, if I could acknowledge the actual creators of NLP, and of course, these guys were very curious. Richard Bandler on the left, John Grinder on the right. Now, John Grinder is more the systematic guy. Richard Bandler is more the strategies guy. He was really good at breaking people's patterns, and John Grinder was really good at seeing systems and structure. So these two were both influential American authors, and these two are noted as the creators of NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And they graduated from the University of California in Santa Cruz, basing their knowledge in psychology and philosophy. Now, what happened is they ended up going out and modeling some of the best people in the space of therapy. And as a result of that, what they started to see is they started to see some patterns. You know, Virginia Satir was one of them. She's since passed on, but she was a family therapist that was really way, way ahead of the game. And she totally knew how to help families to shift their dynamics and improve their communication and bring the family together. And so they would model her. Milton Erickson was another guy that they modeled his languaging patterns. And he was such an expert at helping people change just by talking to them and sharing metaphors. And, you know, if you think about it, a turnaround, if you're going to have a turnaround, what you've got to do is you've got to challenge your own thinking. Because if you don't challenge your own thinking, it's almost nigh impossible to get a turnaround. Because what you're really wanting to do is shift your perspective, you know, move your perspective. And then as a result of that, what will happen is you'll be able to get a complete breakthrough. So NLP was created in the mid 70s and really became a force for good in 1975. It became big. Therapists all around the world were studying it. Then it went into sales. People understood that positive language made a big, big difference to their sales results. And then it started moving into the world of management. Management started to discover that it created superior level management. And then it's now gone into so many different areas. I would love to see more of this go into schools. It is starting. But they've used it in NASA. There's been so much research with NASA now. The military have studied it as well. And there are more and more high-level organizations that have studied neuro-linguistic programming. So it's not just for coaches and therapists. So to summarize really what it is, it's very, very simple in that it's three letters. And they stand for neuro, the mind. I mean, that's where you're going to get the biggest shift from when you shift your mind. And that's going to happen through the linguistic, the use of your language. So NLP is pretty much a non-touch set of skills and a science that has a blend of science and art in it. So the linguistic part is your ability to use your words. Let me give you an example of this. I was working with a client only 2 days ago, and he started using words like gruesome, tough, hard. There were lots of other words, but let's just choose those three: gruesome, tough, and hard. So I said to him, "Your life is obviously gruesome, tough, and hard." And he said, "How did you know?" I said, "I'm just repeating your language straight back at you." And he said, "Oh," he said, "that hurts." I said, "Yeah, well, that's your language. And that's why your world is what it is." So I said, the way that language works is when you say a word, your brain already is connecting to your nervous system to feel what that word or those words actually feel like in your body. Not only that, when you feel, you get emotion. And when you get emotion, you actually get energy that determines your experience. So basically, what you're saying is how the world is going to show up to you because it meets your belief system. So the final part, the value part, is the programming, which is really about reconditioning your thinking, asking, okay, so you're getting this result and you really don't want that result, like you're not getting paid what you want to be paid, or you don't have the health that you really want, or you don't have the relationships that you want, or you haven't achieved in your career or your business. What is the languaging that's keeping you at those results? So the languaging creates the opportunity for freedom. Now, the languaging, of course, happens in the neurology, your brain, your heart brain, and your gut brain. So the reprogramming or the programming is basically literally neurological connections that draw conclusions, and those conclusions turn into beliefs, and those beliefs govern you. So they determine what you will and won't do. So to understand these three pieces, essentially, neuro in learning NLP, what you're doing is you're learning to understand how the brain actually works. How does it work? I mean, what gets results? And so NLP, we're really mastering our understanding of how the brain actually functions. For example, in the course, there's one particular module where we teach people how to improve their memory. And what we do is we create 20 words, we give them the 20 words, and then we close that so they can't see those words anymore. And then we say, okay, what were those 20 words? Write them down in order so everyone can write down the order of the words. Now, most people typically get anywhere between 3 and 8 words out of 20. Once we teach you another way to remember, another strategy, in other words, or another underlying system as well, that class goes from remembering a small amount of words to remembering 20 words in order. So really, at the end of the day, it's conditioning that determines how your brain actually functions. So the linguistic is what I would classify as positive communication. When I mean positive, I mean communication that supports your visions, your dreams, your goals, the behaviors that are going to get you there. And that's the linguistic piece. It's about choosing the language that will get you there. And the programming is really where the transformation happens, when we create that paradigm shift. So if we understand the brain, so we're just kind of looking at the neuro right now. If we look at the neuro, the big distinction here is most people try to change, and I use the word try efficiently. Most people try to change, and that's like sometimes pushing an alternate idea up a hill, so you become Sisyphus, pushing that boulder up a hill. It's just going to run back at you and bowl you over. So the way we function is 5% of our functioning is conscious, but the large majority of how we function is actually unconscious. So a large percentage of how we function is invisible to us. We're not even conscious of it. How do you fold your arms? Left over right, right over left. You won't know that until you do it. When you put your hands together, does your right thumb go over your left thumb or your left thumb go over your right thumb? Again, it's all unconscious behavior. So what we're doing in NLP is we are learning what is the unconscious parts of us, and we're starting to peel away the layers to begin to see, why do we do what we do? So the large percentage of focus really is at the unconscious level, because if you could change just like that, you would have done it. But the reason that people don't change so easily and quickly is because it's unconscious. Their behavior is unconscious. Like someone looks at someone and says, why are you looking at me with that horrible look? And they say, oh, what horrible look? They're not even conscious of it. But what they're doing is they're looking at that person, and that person might have a chin or a nose or a mustache or hair, or speak in a certain way that reminds them of a third grade teacher that was horrible to them. And they don't even know why they're giving them that horrible look, but it's because they've created an association with a particular feature of their physicality, and they are then unconsciously responding like it's that horrible teacher that they had in the third grade. So this particular gentleman, Gerald Zaltman, he's a Harvard professor, and he basically said that 95% of thought, emotion, and learning occur in the unconscious mind, and that is without our awareness. So when I first started learning NLP, they used to say 20-80. They said that 20% of our mind was conscious, 80% was unconscious. But the more and more they're measuring this, the more and more they're realizing most people are in a conditioned, hypnagogic state. They don't even know why they do what they do. So in NLP, what we do is we create a distinction because we want to create change for people. So what we've got to do when someone comes to us with a problem and says, I have this particular issue, that is, I can't get promoted in my job, or I can't grow my business, or I can't find love. What we've got to do is we've got to start to realize that this is how our brain works. We see an event, and what we do is our language determines whether we can understand it or not. And most people, what they do is if the language is saya mau nasi goreng, which is I want fried rice, Indonesian style. Now, if you don't know Indonesian, you cannot hear that word. You can hear the words, you can hear the phrases, but you can't represent it in your brain as to what it means. So what you do is you delete it. You go, that doesn't make any sense to me. And so therefore it is not of use. Languaging is a really important piece. The more we can speak and choose particular words to be able to speak our experience, the more we can be understood and the better we can feel in life. But equally, language is the key that opens your world. Like, for instance, if you want to increase your income, or grow your business, there are certain words that you have to learn before you can have that experience. So language is key, but of course, attitudes, and we've all worked with people who have what we call a bad attitude. Now, that person might not be getting promoted because they're classified as having a bad attitude. Where did that come from? That might have come from their past somewhere, their memories. And it might have been an event that they had in their past that has predicted that behavior or conditioned that behavior to predict those results. So a memories filter is where a lot of focus tends to go, particularly in coaching. You're often helping people who had a particular experience in their life. And what they did is they shut themselves down and they got themselves in a rut because they made a decision about themselves, which essentially formed a belief system. And beliefs are kind of like on or off buttons. You either can do it or you can't do it. And our beliefs can be super, super valuable once you know exactly what beliefs are helping and what aren't. Our values is also a filter that we can do a lot of really good work in. Values are on a hierarchy. Whatever is your number one value is what you strive for mostly in your life. And if you're really sad or down, it's most likely because your number one or two or three values are not being served in your life. Then we have meta programs. Meta programs are the non-content filters. Are you big picture thinker? Are you detail? Are you people focused? Are you project focused? These are our meta programs, and they typically tell us what we can and can't experience in our lives or how we experience our world. So then, of course, there's our decisions filter, and that predicts what we will do. So all of this happens in the blink of an eye. We see an event, it goes through these filters. What happens is we internally represent what we're experiencing. And then as a result, our state, our emotional state, either raises or drops or shuts down. And we then have a physiology effect. We drop our shoulders, we lift our shoulders, we change our physiology in a heartbeat. And then, of course, we create behavior. So when someone asks, how am I creating that behavior? Our first question as NLP practitioners is we have to ask ourselves, what is creating this behavior? Is it the language? Is it the attitude? Is it the memories? Is it the beliefs, the values, the meta programs? Or was it a decision that you made somewhere in your life about yourself or about others or about the world? So this gives us a model. This is the systematic part of NLP. And this is where it gets incredibly valuable. Because if you think about it, if you don't have a system like this, where do you start when someone says, I have a problem? So in NLP, this makes us very efficient as coaches, and it also makes us very efficient as trainers and leaders because we can see what most people cannot see. Hence my comment earlier on. If you're a therapist and you don't know NLP, you are at a distinct disadvantage. So essentially, the language filter, the way that we can think about this, and I'm going to go just a layer deeper on this one filter. So if you think about it, a little bit like the guy that I was talking about that, basically was really struggling and life was hard and, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that we have to understand is that your words are not in isolation. Your words, the words that you use with regularity, create feelings. And then we put meaning on those feelings, and those feelings become more than feelings, they become emotions. We go, that what you just told me makes me feel sad. What you just told me makes me feel really excited. So it's the meaning that we place on the feeling. Now, what that does is that creates a frequency. So, in other words, everything has a frequency. Everything, even inanimate objects have a frequency. So, basically, the question is your frequency, like shameful words, for example, creates very low frequency? So, in other words, shameful words, in fact, shame is going to be around 25 hertz, but in that low frequency, it's 150 hertz, sorry, and lower. When we talk about high frequency, and we've all met these people are positive, productive, they've got lots of energy, they talk very positively, you feel good around them, you feel like something is happening when you're around these people. And these people typically might be using quite joyful words or optimistic words or positive words. And they will have a higher frequency of 500 hertz and above. That middle band between 150 hertz and 500 hertz is really no man's land. It's really quite neutral. It doesn't really take people anywhere. But when we get into the high frequency words, we can get lots of opportunities happening. Um, Over the years, I've been employed to go into companies to work with their team and teach them how to be embodying more high frequency words because they're going to get high frequency results, high productivity, high growth. But if they're in whinging, complaining, moaning, shameful words, they're going to create low frequency. And as a result of that, they're going to get a terrible result or they're going to feel that they're in a terrible world when they're not. Now, here's one little thing that I want to give you. I don't watch the news all that much at all. Every now and then I'll watch it, but I know that when I do watch the news, my frequency tends to go down. That's the intent and purpose of news because news is there to sell advertising. Now, the thing that you have to understand is that if you keep watching the news, your frequency is going to go down. And we've seen a world where the frequency's gone down big time. We look at things like what just ludicrously happened in Bondi just recently. And the thing is, that's very low frequency stuff. And a lot of people suffered and, in fact, died from low frequency activity. But the thing that we have to understand, even though the world is creating a lot of low frequency, don't you buy into that. Because if you buy into that, your frequency will drop. You're not going to be any good to the world with a low frequency. Your job is to get to a high frequency and then you can do some good in the world. So when we think about it, frustration really is just not understanding how your inner world really affects your outer world. If you get frustrated, that's it. It's just you are not really understanding what is causing that frustration. So, equally, who you are being is what you are attracting in your life. A little bit like the guy that I was talking about earlier. Feeling that life is gruesome or grueling, that's his language and the world is now showing up to meet his belief system through that languaging. So the question is, so where does it go so wrong? Really, if you think about it, the majority of the work that typically I'm doing as a trainer in teaching this course and as a coach is I'm aiming to find out what is causing the problematic behavior. So, for example, and this is just one example, if you were punished for speaking up in class, you could be one of two things. In fact, you could be one of many things, but two distinct classifications. You could just let it go and just continue on with your life and change your behavior, or you could take it internally and become a victim. And if you become a victim, what will happen is you might say, why is it I can't get up on a stage and talk when I'm asked at a conference to get up and speak? It's because you were punished for speaking through your life and you've still got that neural program running you. So what you do is you punish yourself and make it really hard for you to get up in front of an audience and speak. So that's just one example. So being punished might be the reason that you punish yourself when it comes to speaking or verbalizing or communicating. And it's not just in public speaking, it can happen just simply in one-on-one conversation. Now, if you've been taught over and over and over and over again, don't talk to strangers, then that could be the very reason that you fear speaking to strangers now. Think about it. You go into a meeting and you're going to do a presentation. You might not know any of those people, or you might just know one or two people and all the rest are strangers. That's what causes anxiety. That's what causes that mouth drying up, that what causes blah, 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 stuttering or not being able to find your words or using a lot of ums and ahs in your presentation. It's just anxiety revealing itself through your words. I hope this is really making sense for everyone. So here's another one. This is a problem that I have resolved for so many of my clients over the years. I've had a lot of clients that say, I'm really good at making money, Rik, but I'm terrible at keeping it. And then we go back and we do a process and we discover that they were told somewhere through their life that they don't deserve money. Sometimes it's not even, they've been told they don't deserve money. Sometimes they've been told that they're not good enough. You weren't good enough out there on the sporting field, little Johnny. You weren't good enough out there, Natalie, in the basketball court. And so that not being good enough, if you think about it, self-esteem links with your income. Not necessarily high self-esteem means you have high income, because there's a lot of people that don't care about income. But high self-esteem is often linked to higher levels of income. So when we begin to understand conditioning, if you think about it, a lot of people say, why do I eat junk food? Why do I eat all that terrible food? Well, the reason is because you're being conditioned for it. So when you're a kid, for example, what we often do as parents or grandparents or relatives, for our nephews and nieces, what we do is we get, sweet food and we go, because you've been so good, here, or because I love you, here, and we give them sweet things. So basically what we get is when we get an expressive response, and as you can see with this child, their mouth is open, their eyes are wide, and they're leaning forward towards the food. This is what we classically call an expressive response to the food. So what basically has happened, that expressive response has conditioned that child to associate the food as being good. So it's a little bit like this essentially equals that. So whenever a child sees good food, or not good food, erase that word, because it's not even food. Quite often the time it's just artificially created somethings that we call food or sweets. So what happens is we are meaning-making machines. So what we do is we make meaning out of everything. So when we see that food, it becomes a visual anchor that makes us, oh, ooh, and it makes us responsive. So, when people feel down, what they often will do is they're wanting to go for that good feeling. So that's why people eat rubbish and put a lot of value on it. And that's why people say, I don't know what it is, but I keep eating that junk food. It's because not only did we have that expressive response, but it's high level marketing as well. So basically, what happens is when I am good, we get a neural connection. I am given a lolly. So then I feel good by being given the lolly. Now, it doesn't mean the lolly makes you feel good, it's just the mental association. And then we make the decision that my lolly giver is my master. So we build a hierarchy in our heads that you are above me because you are the lolly master. And so we build a belief that I only get lollies when I'm good, and lollies are good. So this is conditioning. So what we have to understand when we begin to look at conditioning, we have to understand the system of conditioning. And the system of conditioning is pretty simple. It's complex when it gets in here, but it's pretty simple. So the first thing we have to understand is there is a thing called reality. Now, by the way, you hear people say, oh, it's my reality. That's why my life is like it is. No, that's your conditioned reality. But if we look at reality blankly without emotion, that reality is just data without bias, and it's indisputable fact. So nobody can dispute it. Everyone agrees that that is real. So then what happens is we bring on top of that system, we bring conditioning. And this is when we accept a set of beliefs uncritically. So what we're now doing is we create authoritarian projections. So we say, because I've done a lot of study, this is how the world works. Or because I'm a, author that's written all of these books, I know how the world works. It's not necessarily true. I've written a lot of books, but hey, some people go, no, that's not true. But understand that the moment we put our own interpretation on things, that is essentially due to our conditioning. So the media, advertising, news, it's very responsible for a lot of conditioning, and school, education, and even religion. Now, I'm not saying they're bad, but what I am saying is that much of our conditioning comes from that. And then what happens is we now create what we call perception. So we've given meaning to the data. So what happens is we call it good, bad, different. Or we call it better, less, more like me, less like me. Or we say it's safe or it's unsafe or just it's interesting. But then from perception becomes our altered reality, which we've distorted the facts and we give the data now meaning, and we give it personal and social conditioning. So we reinforce it in our communities, and that becomes our pseudo wisdom. So let me give you an example of this. Now, back in 1975, after the release of a fictional movie, remember, this was a fictional movie, Jaws, directed by Spielberg. And what happened after this movie, the beach attendance in the United States alone dropped by an estimated 20 to 30% during the following summer. Now, despite no increase in actual shark incidents, 20 to 30% of Americans works out to 19 to 29 million back in 1975. So that's a huge amount of people who are influenced by this one fictional movie. So recreational shark fishing exploded worldwide after Jaws, and the populations began collapsing shortly after, with some species declining by 70 to 90%. What we did is we villainized the shark. We turned the shark into a villain. Now, there's been many ecological studies that have suggested that if the sharks go, our seafood system could be jeopardized. Now, I won't go into that in detail, but what I'm really saying is that one movie did this. Our reality, our conditioning and perception created an altered reality. So, for example, if you love watching nature on TV, okay, that might be your reality. You love watching nature on TV. Then you watch Jaws and it really scared you. So then what happened? Perception, you may have concluded that sharks were man-eaters. And so as a result of that, what has happened is you have ascribed meaning to the ocean. So the ocean might have been a great place to go swimming and fishing and sailing and surfing and all of that. And then all of a sudden it becomes a no-go zone. So this is conditioning. NLP is about working out what is the conditioned behavior that you are demonstrating and teaching you how to break free of your conditioning. And literally that's what we're doing mostly in coaching using NLP is we're helping people to break through their conditioning. So my conditioning, let me give you an example of my conditioning. I used to live in a suburban house in Southbank and then I moved to Camberwell in Victoria. I believed that I had to live there because I was a trainer and a coach and sure, my books didn't matter. I could live anywhere in the world, but people kept telling me, don't move from here. You're in the hub. You're in the central point. You can work with so many people. I believe that. As a result, I remember sitting down with my wife one particular year and we sat down and asked the question, is this the right place for us to be? Do we want to live here? And the answer was no. We didn't want to live there anymore. I love surfing. I wanted to get closer to the ocean. So I had to change my conditioning to be able to make this happen. By the way, it worked out fantastic. But when we break our conditioning, our inner world changes and so our outer world can evolve. So examples of great NLP work. My inner world creates my outer world, according to Harv T. Eker. And I completely believe that. I completely agree with him. When you change your inner world, you can actually change your outer world. You can't change your outer world by changing the outer world. You actually have to change your reactions, responses, and behaviors to the world in order to change it. This is what most people do. When problems occur or when they're not getting what they want or where they want, most people bury their heads in the sand and pretend it's not a problem. It's not an effective solution. In fact, it's quite problematic. So when we think of it, why do people get so stuck and stymied? It's because they invest in their outer world. So they buy lots of things. And the marketing machine ensures that you do this. Keep buying lots and lots of things. Do we need any of these things? No, we don't. But hey, it's okay. You can buy these things and that's okay. But the real freedom is when you break out of your conditioning. Because a lot of people do not invest anything in their inner world. Because the truth is, your inner world actually creates your outer world. So a lot of people get stuck in consuming things, end up with sheds and cupboards filled with stuff they really don't need because they're investing in their outer world and not really investing in their inner world. Your whole world can change when you change your perspective. So this is a gentleman, Jürgen is his name. He's in Switzerland. Actually, I think he's in Austria at the moment. But he said, I was on the same income for a decade. Rik helped me to find my limits and remove them. And I increased my income by over 100,000. So what he did to do that was he realized that his perceptions were keeping him limited. This particular lady, Marilyn, she said, I believe no one would listen to me, but I was wrong. I built my first online course and in just a few weeks, 1,902 people enrolled. I was gobsmacked that a grandmother could succeed online. Now, there's the limit. There's the belief. I don't believe a grandmother can succeed online. Well, here is a grandmother that now has over 70,000 students in her program. How did she do that? We helped her to change her beliefs. This particular gentleman, he said that I essentially helped him to double his income. What he's not saying in this particular testimonial here is that I actually did it in 30 minutes. I sat down with him, and in 30 minutes, that conversation had him doubling his income. It blew his mind, so I had to change his perspective. Hector basically said that he doubled his income, and he was the gentleman that I was talking about that brought his entire family into our life coach and NLP program. No wonder. I mean, he had big shifts in his life financially. And so he opened his mind. This lovely lady, Rebecca King is her name. She's now a coach. I helped her to get out of depression, and she was plagued by depression for more than 20 years. And she actually accredits NLP with saving her life. And so it can do big things used in the right way. So the thing is, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, according to Joe Dispenza, which he's saying just exactly the same thing that Harv T. Eker said. There are so many people that really get this. So this is how we teach NLP. Let's say we're teaching beliefs. The first thing that we do is we have to understand what are beliefs. So in all of our modules, we address various things. Beliefs is just one of many. So what we do is we say, okay, what are beliefs? Because we have to understand what beliefs actually are. Then the next thing that we do is we have to know, how do you actually change beliefs? What is the system that you're using in order to do that? And so we demonstrate it. I will get in the training, and I will get a volunteer that will have a belief that they want to change, and I will do the process with them, and the whole students can see that shift happening. And then the next part is that we go through the steps of how we did that, and then we look at which limiting beliefs do we need to change, and that's with our student body. Okay, what are the beliefs that you want to change? And then we go into a breakout room, we go into an exercise so that they can go and use what I've just taught and change a belief. This is to know, and not yet to do is not yet to know. This is the experience. And when they then change that belief, what happens is it blows people's minds as to how quick you can shift with the right tools. Then we then encourage our students to do it again, just to practice it, and so that they can get good at it. The thing I love about NLP is I can travel anywhere in the world and I can change people's lives without taking my manuals, scripts, or anything, because I have learned these all without having to go into my manuals. So when do we teach NLP? This is how we do it. We get a lot of busy people do our course, and we've found this is the best way to actually teach it. So our weekly training just runs for 3 hours out of your 168-hour week. So it's just a very small chunk, and by the way, this is only 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., as you can see on the graph, but it's just a very small chunk. So we do this on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. Everyone comes back. For instance, our next training, which is happening in February next year on a Monday. So to start the week and help everyone to really get primed for a great week ahead. And so we start on the 16th of February, 2026. It runs from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on Monday nights. And every single module is recorded. So if you miss a module, you can always watch the recording. So This training is the most complete and the highest value NLP training at the lowest price. So what we've actually done is we've created an ultimate package. So we want to totally make this mind-blowing. So we've combined a few things in our next intake. And so we're calling this the transformational bonanza. We did this about 3 years ago, but we're actually doing it even at a lower price than we did it back then. So this includes our life coach and NLP practitioner certification. It also includes Marketing Incubator, which is a program that helps people to learn how to market themselves as a coach or as a trainer. And you also get the Millionaire Master Academy, which is really learning the language of money and learning how to increase your income by following millionaires and their systems, their strategies, and their formulas. So we've put all of these together. So what is actually inside of the Life Coach and NLP Practitioner course? It basically looks like this. It's foundational to advanced NLP and life coaching skills training. So you actually learn the skills that we teach coaches so you can actually coach yourself and others. So as I say, not everyone is a coach and wants to be a coach, but we teach it to you like as if you are. And that's how you can extract the most value out of this course. So you'll learn how to stop negative emotions from influencing you. This is amazing. Just this one particular module is hugely valuable. In fact, there's two modules in that. And you learn how to change your traumatic past for good. This is turnaround stuff. This has the lady that I was sharing, Beck King, a lot of her success, the reason she went from depression and beyond and got out of it was from this particular tool, which will teach you. And it teaches you how to get rid of trauma and how to get rid of it for good. You'll learn to manage and master your emotions, how to change your limiting beliefs. You'll learn specialized tools to improve your money mindset. And that, together with Millionaire Master Academy, is gold. That really is a big financial changer. And how to identify your limits and remove them for good. And you'll discover the power of hypnosis to change neural pathways. And it's just like meditation, but on steroids. So you also discover how to uncover everything that's stopping you, learn how the wealthy come to think and how they become that way. You get one-on-one coaching inside the program to advance you. You get to master 4 styles of English. Communication is a big piece. That's the linguistic piece of NLP. And you learn how to build rapport with anyone. If you're in sales or if you're in the people business, this is massively valuable. It can make a big, big difference to your results. And you get problem-solving models that make problems vanish. And you learn techniques that will actually remove food, drinks that you don't want from your life for good. And you'll improve your memory and your ability to learn. Now, for the coaches, the things that we also teach in this program is how to easily attract clients, how to set up your coaching systems and your admin, discover how to scale up your business, how to create landing pages and websites, become an influence for good, and learn the commercial coaching systems that professionals use, and discover how to make $50,000 with 5 hours of coaching a week. And we'll give you the templates, sales systems, and proven coaching tools. And you'll learn how to price and package yourself and discover the easiest pathway to coaching. So there's so much in this program, but of course, I don't want to go through too much of it because we just don't have the time here. So to summarize this, we have a 9-point advantage with our training. So we have really synthesized this over many, many years, and we've found this is the best way to learn NLP. The first is the manual. All of the techniques, all of the processes, everything you will learn and more is in that manual, that 550 page manual. Then there are audios that help you that you can listen to in your iPod or on your smartphone, and you can listen to the trainings as well. So you can take it in auditorily. Then there's the 35 modules that you attend on a weekly basis. That's where the real value is. That's where the big value is. The others help, but this is where the actual learning to basically understand it at a very deep level. So that's mandatory. And then there's coaching inside the program so that you can identify what are your problems, what are your challenges, what are your blocks, what are your beliefs that are limiting you, and do the one-on-one work to actually get those programs shifted. Marketing Incubator comes with this program, as I've mentioned, and there are 3 certificates: the NLP practitioner, the Ericksonian hypnotherapist, and the life coach certification. And this is accredited by the Neuro-Linguistic Programming Association of Asia Pacific. So you can use this anywhere in the world. Once you are accredited, that accreditation is nationally certified and internationally recognized. So we've had a lot of people work in Japan and America and Germany and other countries. So this qualification can be used anywhere. And then we have a fast track page where every single module of the 35 modules is recorded and then goes on a fast track page that you get access to. So if you miss a module, you can watch it again. And not only that, you can also review the training whenever you like. So what we have is Zoom and email support for students. So there's 6 30-minute Zoom support sessions that you can use anytime. They are completely free. There's no extra charge for that. Then there's unlimited 12-month access to get help personally or professionally. So you can contact us and say, hey, how do you do this? How do I do that? Now, the value of this is $2,500. You also get this with the training. So here's what you get. You get the life coach and NLP practitioner training. So it's 35 modules. You get all the support, all the email support as well. So the total value of that is $8,470. Now, if you've already made up your mind that you want to join us in this program, here are the bonuses explained. So the first is Marketing Incubator. Now that is about helping you with marketing strategies that are proven that work so that you can increase your results by over 300%. So that is lifetime as well. So you can access that course whenever you like. Most of our students prefer to access that course at the end of the training, but it's there for you from the very beginning. So that's valued at $4,997. Then there's Millionaire Master Academy. Now, that's a huge program. This is 52 videos. So there's a lot in that program. Again, most of our students access it at the end of the program, but some start watching the videos as they go. But again, you got lifetime access, so it doesn't matter. So again, that's valued at $4,997. So you get the training, you get the support, you also get the bonuses. So the total value of this is insane. It's $18,464. But what we're doing, and you can scan the QR code, which takes you directly to the page now, we're going to create this one-time offer because we want your success story. And at midnight, this is going to revert back to full price without the bonuses. So the bonuses, even when you go onto this page, the bonuses are not listed. Although, should you register before midnight today, you get all the bonuses. So it's 18,464 of value, and we have brought this down to 2,997. We haven't charged this price since 2006. So this is the very first price that people paid when they first started training with us back in 2006 is when we first started teaching NLP. And so this is the lowest price that it's ever going to be. And we wanted to make this an absolute slam dunk, crazy, crazy deal. And our big focus is we want to also help leaders to make a difference in the world. God knows the world certainly does need you now. So there's also a 12-month payment of 277, or you can even do a very small 24-month payment of 177. So we wanted to do this in a way that anybody could afford it. That's our focus for today. So the link, that QR code, will take you to this page. As you scroll down, there's a number of options. You can pay upfront and you get the biggest discount, or you can separate it into 12 payments or into 24 payments. And if you have done this program before with us, we have a very low refresher program for students only that have done the course before. And you can also schedule a call about this course. So, by the way, if you click on that button, the only availables are going to be after tonight. So you won't be getting the discount if you schedule a call to talk about this course. But you can email me, today, this afternoon, if you've got any questions at all. This is also the link if you want to go directly to the link. I'll make sure that I email these to you as well. So basically, this ends midnight tonight. So if this appeals to you, if you really want to make 2026 a completely breakthrough year for you, then jump in, get into the course, and make a real difference in 2026. So as you can see, it's insane. It's almost $15,500 off the actual program. So we've made this a really super, super deal. Now, if you don't want to do the course, but you want some coaching or you want some help next year, this is the QR code to get some help for next year. Again, that will jump into my own diary next year. So you will be talking to me. You won't be talking to anybody else. So I know completely and fully what I've offered here. And you can also go to lifebeyondlimits.com.au help, and that will take you to that page. It accesses my diary. You can book a time and we can have a chat. So I've gone a bit over time, so thank you very, very much for staying, and I'll make sure that I get the audios out to everyone. If you do want some help, you'll come to the diary. All those dates are gone now, but anyway, that's what it'll look like. Now, I want to summarize by what has, how can NLP actually, elevate your 2026? This is what it did for me in 2004. NLP really gave me confidence in myself. That was priceless. What I was able to do with that confidence was amazing. But the bigger piece that it gave me is it gave me purpose. I have been doing this for many, many years. It is my purpose. It is what I'm meant to do. I love helping. I love coaching. I love teaching. It's exactly where I need to be, but I didn't know it until I did the course. But the biggest piece that it has given me, and I also hope it will give you this, is hope. We need hope for 2026. I know the world has gone nuts. I know there's some crazy things happening, but don't let yourself fall down into that low level thinking, into that low hertz rate. So thank you so much. Wishing you all a prosperous 2026. Thank you. I know it's a busy time. I really appreciate you being on this call today. And I want to thank you enormously. And I'm looking forward to seeing you grow in 2026. So thank you kindly from the bottom of my heart and all the people you can't see in the team. Thank you so much for jumping on this with me today. And I hope this has created at least some clarity for you. And I look forward to helping you and serving you in the course. So thank you, and have an amazing year.